Waiting for some signs of life on Facebook. So thank you. Bear with me. Let me know that you're here. We are here to talk about how do you get through the things getting worse before they get better part of healing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hopefully you've joined here today to be interactive. Still love to see somebody show me some hearts or something on Facebook just to let me know that you're here. All right, Kelly is telling me she sees me. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. It is April 17th, 7:30 in West Michigan, where I am. Hi, Natalie. Hey, Leanne. Good to see you. I have my jasmine tea here. What good things have you got going on tonight? Hey, Dottie. Hello. Hi, Katie. Yeah, thanks for interacting in the chat. Let me know what you got going on here. It's snowing where I am. We are mid to late April and it's snowing here. That's crazy. Maybe some of you have crazy weather going on too. I just want to remind you that we are on Leslie's public Instagram and Facebook page. So be mindful what you're putting in the chat here. Just everybody can see what you put there. So just be mindful of that. So let me know what you're thinking about this topic. Let me see if I have a banner for that. No. How do you get through things getting worse before they get better part of healing? What comes to your mind when I say that? Go ahead and put it in the chat. I have Kelly helping here with tech support tonight. You can send in a private question to me that won't be broadcast on Facebook or Instagram. You can send that to leslievernick.com/question/. And maybe Kelly can just put that in the chat for me. And I'll try to get to your questions tonight. The calm before the storm. Yeah, dread. Frankie's saying dread, the worst before it gets better. Nowhere else to turn. Yes, that's sounding familiar. When I thought of this question, what came to my mind was moving. I've moved a lot. I was married for 24 years, and in that time, we moved 19 times. And moving to me is just the worst upheaval. And for a long time, the sound of packaging tape just sent my nervous system into dysregulation. Yeah, Katie, depressed and trapped. I have felt that. Yeah, life gets disrupted when you're moving. Things get in disarray. There's little calm or comfort, high level of distress and grief. The body's sore from moving. And then you land in a new place where you don't know anybody and you really have to start fresh. That's what I think of when I think of things getting worse before they get better. But then after you move, you start to settle in, boxes unpacked, you get a new level of comfort in your new place, and a sense of normal happens again. Yeah, some people, it is hard to move. It's very hard to move. I experienced this sort of upheaval in marriage as well. And I can recall this. I told a girlfriend it was like God was taking a bulldozer and just leveling my marriage. And at the time, I thought that it would be rebuilt from the ground up, but that didn't happen. And so there was a long period of time where I was moving towards divorce and finally filed for divorce. And that things got worse for sure for a long time. And that grief and anguish was really crushing for a long time. But, 3+ years out, I am well into the healing process now. It can be grueling. So maybe you're having a hard time getting through the worst of things now, or maybe you're on the other end of it. So I'd love to just hear your ideas about how do you do that? How do you make it through? Sometimes the upheaval leads to good. It's painful while it's happening, but then a new, healthier pattern can take root. But how do you get through that? What are your ideas? What can you do when you're going through that really hard, worse before it gets better part of your life? How do you survive? Katie says, I'm still trying to figure that out. Well, I'm glad you're here, Katie, because we're going to be talking about that. Any other ideas? Growing closer to God and giving up control. Pray, absolutely. Lean on Jesus. I love that one. Yeah, he is so strong when we are not. Absolutely. One of the things, self-care, yes, that's on my list. Exercise, that's another great thing. Support is high on my list. When you're going through the worst before it gets better part of healing, you need some fantastic support to keep you going. And that's part of why we're here tonight, is just to let you in on the opening of the Conquer membership. It's going to be open for the rest of this week, be closing on Friday. It's our education and support group that Leslie started many years ago. And it's a great place to talk to other women who are going through hard things and who have come out of hard things, to learn about different aspects of getting healthy. It's a way to focus on positive growth, like Heather's saying in the chat. Leslie has a lot of educational videos to watch and to learn from, as well as the support group that's on Facebook currently, to put out your prayer requests, to talk about your situations. Yeah, Conquer is finally open, and it won't be open again until October. So this is your chance this week to get in on that and start your Conquer journey, sort of the entry into the Conquer program, just so you can get your feet wet, so to speak, and learn about the program and get through 5 different steps of learning. Another really important thing, I think, is to learn how to manage your emotions. That can be really difficult. A lot of big emotions will come up when you're going through the worst part of your healing, and learning how to regulate, sometimes just learning how to name emotions and different skills to calm your nervous system can be really helpful. Somebody already mentioned self-care. That's a big one too. Self-care is not selfish at all. It's good stewardship of your body, and it's so important when you're going through a hard time. Another thing that I came up with was managing the pushback. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you start to heal, you get some pushback from some people in your life. Natalie's saying, I bought myself a feeling chart. Thank you very much for that. That's a very important thing when you're trying to heal. I've got my feeling wheel pillow in the background there. It can be so useful. And it does help to know that your feelings will pass. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say the pushback from others? When you begin to change and get healthier, they don't like it. And it can be really challenging. It can be a big obstacle to your own growth. And this is where I think most people need a lot of support, because you get weary. You get weary when other people are fighting against your change. Yeah. Just reading your comments in the chat. Thank you so much for that. Learning to forgive ourselves and our spouse. Forgiveness is important too for healing. Absolutely. And being able to help others to get your mind off yourself, that can be helpful too. Also, not living in the past, getting hung up on what was, but being willing to move forward. And sometimes that takes little tiny baby steps in order to get going. Yeah. Important to set aside time for each other in a relationship. Yeah, many relationships. I hope you have some healthy relationships in your life. We surround ourselves with healthy people, and that helps to encourage us to grow. If you're in a relationship with a destructive person, they may be hindering you from growing, and that can be a major challenge. Yeah. It can be hard when somebody is supposed to be your ally, but they're making things difficult for you. And then you may need some extra support outside of that relationship. Yeah, pushback can really hurt you in your decision making before you do your own work. I had only unhealthy in my life and had to work hard to find healthy. Yeah. Yes, if you only have unhealthy in your life, it's hard to even know what healthy is. If you've grown up in an unhealthy family, that's what feels normal to you. And it's likely to be what you find in adult life, unhealthy relationships, because it feels normal. It feels comfortable, even though it's not healthy. And so surrounding yourself with like-minded people who love Jesus and are longing to get healthy themselves can be really helpful. Repetitive behaviors keep you thinking of the past. Yes, breaking those behaviors is really hard, and getting stuck in those repeated patterns, it can be hard to break out of, especially if it's a cycle with somebody else and you've got this dance going on. It can be really challenging to change your part when the other person is not changing. So I was thinking about just a story from scripture, and I was thinking about David going from shepherd to king. There was a sticky middle part for David as well. Things got much worse before they got better for him. And I was really diving into what did he do? What did he do in that time between when he was anointed and when he became king? I think there was about 40 years in there where Saul became jealous of David. His name was being known, and Saul began to pursue him. That was really hard on David. He went into hiding. He was a fugitive. He went into a cave, and when people heard David was there, this big select group of people went and joined him. And this is from 1 Samuel 22. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him, and he became their leader. And about 400 men were with him. So in David's distress, and he's in that sticky middle part between being shepherd and being king, he really found a purpose for his life. And he found a lot of people to support him and to go with him. And he was leader of those people, but he had a lot of people surrounding him. And he really showed a great example of leaning on God through that hard time. He faced loneliness and isolation, physical hardships, mental stress, fear of his life, enemies and spies chasing him. unclear destination and doubt. Does this sound like some of the things you may be going through? I know in this community, I hear those things a lot. People are struggling with these same sorts of things. What do we do with that? In Psalm 63:8, David says, I cling to you. Your strong right hand holds me securely. He leaned on God for sure. And he showed a really beautiful example of planting his trust and faith in God. And I can say for sure that being in a destructive relationship has grown me to be a better counselor, to be a better coach, better friend, a better parent. And so I think it's important when you're going through those hard times to really glean something from it, to really ask God, why am I here? Why am I here in this difficult place? And what do you want me to learn from it? David really showed that he learned to earnestly seek God. He needed to do that. He recalled all the pastimes that God took care of him. He chose gratitude over grumbling and thanksgiving over complaining. He was singing and declaring his love for God. And he found refuge in God and refreshment in God's presence. David didn't allow the wilderness to cause him to drift from God, but it taught him to cling to God. He took all his cries to God. And he didn't allow his present circumstances to diminish his view of God. I think David was a beautiful example. And I think God is inviting you into something that you maybe aren't currently equipped to take on. All of these things that David went through in the wilderness equipped him to be the king. What is God equipping you to through your very hard circumstances? He's taking you through hard circumstances to a better place, a more healed place, where you will be empowered to do something for him. I'm just looking in the chat. I just want to remind you, if you have questions for me, you can send those privately. And we have that link in the chat, leslievernick.com/question/. Asking why was a big hurdle for me. It felt shameful to even ask that to the Lord. Asking why. I think asking why, if it's asked in a curious way to God, what are you preparing me for, Lord? Why are you allowing this into my life for my growth? God may just give you some insight. If it's said in more of a victim tone, why is this happening to me, Lord? Why are you doing this to me, Lord? That may be different. That might bring out some shame. But I think God can really tolerate our questions. And he may just give you some insight into what he's preparing you for. Certainly David had that. He had some insight. He was anointed by the prophet Samuel as the future king of Israel. But it was his actions in exile that helped ensure that he would be invited to become the king, the successor of Saul. It was all of that hard work that he did of leaning on God and really securing his faith that led him to be invited to become king. "28 years ago, God told me I would help abused women and children one day." Yeah, Yeah, God often uses our pain to become our greatest purpose. So if that were true for you, what might God be leading you to? To learn my core values so that I can teach them to my kids. That's so meaningful, Natalie. Yeah. And you really have to know it yourself before you can teach it to your kids. And they'll be watching you, and they're going to be learning more from your modeling than from what comes out of your mouth. And it's so important for our children to learn these skills. I don't know about you, but this is not something that I was taught when I was young, about my core values, about how to have core strength to be responsible for myself. I wasn't taught about identifying feelings or how to regulate my emotions. So none of that came natural to me when I needed it. And I had to learn all of that as an adult. So you're doing a huge service to your kids if you're learning this for them now and helping them with that. I stand on the scripture. All things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Yes, and sometimes it's hard to remember that, right? When you're in the midst of hard, it's really hard to think about what God may be working on, but he is working on something. He has a plan for your life. He has purpose for your life. And I'm hoping that you join us in Conquer. The coaches, all the coaches, myself, Leslie, and the mentor coaches are on that page, and they give tremendous support. It's a very meaningful place to be, to learn about core values, to learn about emotions, to learn how to regulate. I'm just going to look and see if there are any questions so far. Question is, I've set up a separate living situation for myself, but next month my granddaughter will graduate from high school. In order to attend, I would have to fly with my husband. So I'm not exactly sure the details of this. So you may be limited by your thinking. This is just a thought because I don't know the details. So would you have to fly with your husband? If you let go of that thought, what other options may be there? Just thinking about possibilities. Is it possible you could fly with somebody else, fly by yourself? Sounds like for some reason you have created a separate space for yourself, and so you may want to keep that. If you do need to, for some reason, fly with your husband, is there a way that you can talk about expectations? Sort of converse with him about what are the ground rules? What are the expectations that you both have about the trip? How do you want to show up in that space with each other? I hope that's helpful. T. Howard, I did that for my son's boot camp graduation. I took my sister. She has boundaries. It may be easier to take somebody who has boundaries and is going to be more supportive of you. The question site, Lori, is leslievernick.com/questions/. I'm in a difficult position with a close family member that is narcissistic. I've had this family pattern for a long time, and I feel worn down and feel like a caged animal getting poked at. I have some things in the future that are quite unpleasant, and I feel helpless. but sounds like you need support. So all these things that we're talking about, I'm wondering how they're impacting you. What support do you have with this family member? Because when you're in that worn down place, you don't have a lot of energy for yourself to take care of yourself, to move forward. And it can be life changing to have somebody walk alongside you, to share ideas with you, to listen to you, to validate you. I don't think you're getting a lot of that from this narcissistic family member. And I know that feeling, a caged animal being poked at. But are you in a cage? That's what I would ask you. What is that cage around your life? I don't know what's keeping you. In our community, safety is really important. So I don't know what's keeping you in this cage, so to speak. Perhaps it's fear. Perhaps there's abuse going on. But I would ask you, what would your safety plan be? What would it take for you to get out of that cage so that you're not being poked at? So that's part of what we could help you work on in Conquer. One of the very first steps is safety, creating a safety plan to help you walk through what do you do when you're feeling locked in a cage? What other resources do you need for yourself? What help do you have? And having things in the future that are quite unpleasant. You may need somebody to walk alongside you as you do those things. I don't know what those things are. If they're necessary things, it can be life-changing to have a friend walk with you through those things, to get help from somebody else. T. Howard says, my family has not been the ones I could turn to. Have very few friends who support me no matter what. Bible study, counselor, advocates for support. Yeah, support is very important when you're going through a hard time. I planned on leaving for over 5 years. Now I wish I would have taken my toothbrush. I lost the chat's going so quickly. My paperwork, my children, and a pillow. Don't wait till it's dangerous. Yeah, that's great advice. And so we talk about that in Conquer is we make the safety plan and we talk about what are the signs of danger. As you're getting healthy, sometimes what happens is the destructive person in your life begins to escalate. So someone that you maybe didn't think was a threat to your life may start to escalate and become rather fearful. And so we want to make sure that you have a safety plan in place that you can go to if you need to. Here's another question. Where do I turn if my family or church won't believe my husband's abusive? Or they just tell me to pray and wait for the Lord to restore your marriage? Well, I would say to you, where do you turn? You turn to somewhere like this ministry where we understand what that's like. So unfortunately, a lot of churches and a lot of people in general don't understand abuse. They don't understand that coercive control is abuse. So they think if you don't have a black eye, you're not being abused, right? And then you just need to pray harder. But I think what you need is a community of people who really understand what it's like to live in that covert emotional abuse, maybe spiritual abuse, where it doesn't necessarily leave a visible mark, but it leaves a very deep emotional mark. that they can't see. And, here you're saying they just tell you to pray and wait for the Lord to restore your marriage. We have a lot of clarity in this ministry that the Lord is not going to just zap your destructive, abusive spouse into changing. It's going to take a lot of work on that person's part. It's going to take them yielding to the Lord and having a willingness to grow and change. And so certainly prayer is important. Intercessory prayer is important. But also, I think you need to know the signs of what is real change and to really sort through for yourself, what are you looking for? What do you need to see in order to believe that a new pattern is being developed? So the old pattern is an abusive pattern, and it's going to take some work on that destructive person's part to start developing a new pattern where you can actually trust them. And the Lord's not going to do all of that work. He'll be there to support and add strength, but He's not going to do the work of that. So I would say to you, if you're able, join Conquer. We do offer a few scholarships, and maybe that's something that Kelly is also putting in the chat. There's a couple of scholarships available each time we open Conquer. So if you're not able to afford it, that may be available to you. And the link to the Conquer sign up is also in the chat. leslievernick.com/Conquer sign up. I used to pray for lightning to take him out or for his drunkenness to lead him to fall a little harder. I was becoming a person that I hated. Yeah, that place of desperation when you're so distraught and desperate for anything to change. Yeah, it's a horrible place to be. That's that worst place. So we're talking about how do we move towards something better, towards healing. And hopefully this encouragement that you get from the Conquer support group and the education that Leslie provides in her video will help you move forward and not be in that stuck place of becoming a person that you don't like. Now, after 5 months of separation and years of dysfunction before that, my husband said today he is willing to do anything to save the marriage. I asked him to do his personal work 2 years ago, and he would not. I have come so far and already grieved the marriage. Am I hard-hearted if I'm not really interested in reconciling? So that's a good question that you're asking yourself. And really, that is between you and the Lord. And I would say not necessarily hard-hearted. Sometimes in the devastation of dysfunction that goes on for years, a lot of trust is damaged. And sometimes trust can't be rebuilt when it is damaged too many times or too devastatingly damaged. It's not able to be repaired. So he may be willing to do some work. He's saying it, but is he actually taking the action steps? You haven't mentioned that. So this may just be his words telling you that he's going to change in order to keep you in the relationship. But you want to really be looking for meaningful change, heart change, not just ticking boxes of change, but true, humble, lasting heart change. You've already begun to grieve the marriage because it's been damaged for such a long time. And so probably I'm guessing that you've distanced yourself a bit, maybe began to detach emotionally from the relationship. And that's normal. That doesn't mean you have a hard heart. You may have a hard heart if you are feeling bitterness and hatred towards this person. But if you're talking about trust has been broken so badly that you're not sure that you can be in close relationship with this person again, if he begins to do change, it's still going to be a long time before you know it's lasting change. I'm at the beginning of making big choices and leaving change. I'm trying to cling to God, but I'm also upset that after all these years of marriage and following God, I've been deceived by my husband, who's a covert narcissist. He has hurt my heart so badly, and now when I turn to God, I feel I hit a brick wall in my mind. I'm struggling so much with my faith and don't want to be at this spot in my life. So, your question makes me think of letting go of the outcome. So we've done some other lives on letting go of the outcome and the importance of that. So, and I felt this as well, getting latched onto what I believe God would want or what God would be doing in my marriage. I told you, I told a friend that God had bulldozed my marriage, and I really believe that God would rebuild that, that it would be stronger after being rebuilt. That was the outcome that I wanted, and that's what I was holding my hope to, and that didn't happen. God had another plan for me. Certainly, had my ex done his work, maybe the marriage would have been rebuilt. But because that didn't happen, my outlook had to change. I had to trust in God taking care of me and that God would have a plan for my life. So I don't know what God has for your life, but part of letting go of the outcome is allowing God to work and being in that place where you're not really sure what's going to happen next, and letting go of this dream that you may have, this idea of what you think should happen, and just waiting on the Lord to help you walk forward. I can imagine there were many times in David's walk in the wilderness that he was struggling with his faith. His faith that God would make him king. I'm sure doubt came into his mind as he's being pursued. And I'm sure he didn't want to be in that spot in his life. So I would encourage you to take some of those skills that David used, of just leaning on God, singing, looking for the good, finding purpose in his life. So part of also what we work on in Conquer is helping you heal separate from your marriage. So letting go of that outcome of what the marriage is going to look like, and really focusing on who God is calling you to be, how God is calling you to grow, the purpose he's giving you, learning about yourself and what lights you up, what causes you to feel passionate about the world. We really focus on building you up and helping you be a better version of yourself, in spite of what happens with the relationship. So you may really find support within Conquer and some things that you may need. And really diving into that brick wall in your mind. What is that like for you? What are those thoughts? Oftentimes in our distress, we can become so fixated on certain beliefs or thoughts, like I was talking about particular outcomes. We get those fixed in our minds, and they may not be what God has in store. They may not be full truth. but we may be believing in them. So challenging our thoughts, listening to our emotions, and helping us develop forward steps is part of what we'll be working on in Conquer. So I hope that you can join us in that. Does Conquer have another way to connect other than Facebook? Currently, that is the platform that we use for the support group. All of the videos are through your own training portal. So you have access to a training portal to help you go through the education part of the support group. If you have concerns about being on Facebook with your name, you can come up with an alias, and many people do. And you can just use Facebook with your alias, and you don't have to be on Facebook other than to be in Conquer. So that's just a little suggestion for you. Take another question. I feel alone, divorced, only child. Mom is in a nursing home. I'm in charge of her finances. Much pressure on me to get her out when she's not fit to get out. So depressing to watch her money go. She's turned on me before. I can feel it coming again. On a brighter side, getting out of my 38-year marriage after learning. Oh, the rest of that question is not there. It sounds like you're in a very hard place. A lot of heavy weight on your shoulders, and you're dealing with someone who's elderly. So, sometimes the elderly can be destructive because their mind begins to fail. And so it can be really hard. So she's turning on you, and I feel for you. And it can be really hard to withstand that if you're on your own. Hopefully getting out of your marriage will give you some more strength to be dealing with that. But certainly you're going to need support too, and really good self-care, and a place to go to kind of manage your emotions. And I hope you're doing that work for yourself. And I'm not sure if there was a question there because it got cut off, but maybe we can find the ending of that. What do you do when your harder makes things easier for him? He just lets it all go, assuming it will clear it all up when we get back together. I did tell him his stuff has to be dealt with if we are to get back together, especially finances. Though his lack there affects me when we are just separated. What do you do when your harder makes things easier for him? So it sounds like he's not doing his work. And so I would advise you to proceed with caution and getting back together. So you're separated now, and hopefully you're separated for a purpose. And I would hope that you have support in what a separation should look like. A therapeutic separation means that each person is working on particular goals. So it's not just a timeout where you get to be by yourselves, but there should be some progress happening on each side before coming back together. So he may not be doing his own work. He may just be allowing you to do your work in hopes that you'll just come back into the relationship. But if you do that, there may not be enough change. So you doing your work certainly can create change in the pattern. If you step out of the dance will look different. But is it going to look different enough for you? We don't know. But if you've left, I'm guessing you've left for a purpose. So I think I would be cautious and asking a lot of curious questions. What work is he doing? And so we talk about in Conquer not creating lists and being specific about the things that he needs to be changing, but being very aware and alert of what things he wants to be changing. What things is he working at? So if finances are important to him, is he looking at his finances? Is he beginning to work on that and watching over time if he's really done the work there? After 3 years of counseling and having gone through Conquer, I finally left my abusive marriage and filed for separation. Now my husband has been radically changed, his words, and is getting counseling and claims he's doing his work. If his change is real, am I obligated to be restored to him, or am I released to move on at some point? So you use the word obligated. Am I obligated to be restored to him? So you've gone through Conquer. It sounds like maybe staying in Conquer a little bit longer may be helpful because you are not obligated to be restored. You have that choice within yourself, and really only you know the relationship and what the relationship's been like, and what him doing his work will look like, and if that's going to be enough to restore your trust in him. You know how you feel and what's been damaged. So I don't want to be the one to make that decision for you, but I do want to empower you to begin making that decision for yourself. And I would be asking you, why do you feel obligated to be restored to him? Where is that coming from? Are you getting pressure from your church? Are you getting pressure from family members? Are you getting pressure from your spouse? Where is that coming from that you're feeling obligated? Because you definitely get to make that choice. And you get to decide between you and God if God is releasing you. So I would really be pressing into this radical change that he's telling you he's made. And that's going to take some interaction with him, even if you're separated. So being separated, I think, is great for you to give some space to calm your nervous system, to do your work. Eventually, if you're hoping to reconcile, more and more interactions will have to be had in order to really see, is there change? And you'll know if you're talking to him on the phone, if you're meeting up for coffee, I think by his attitude. If you're able to give him some feedback and he takes it well, without getting angry, without getting defensive, that may be an indicator that there's some actual change. If he's able to recognize the impact that his behavior has had on you, he may just be beginning to change. If he's able to think about how that has affected you, and he's able to make a really good apology to you and talk to you about how it's going to be different in the future, without getting defensive, without turning it on you, without blaming you, it's possible that change is happening. But still, you're not obligated. You get to decide if your trust can be restored. And trust and forgiveness are not the same thing. So even though you may be forgiving him, that's your work to do with the Lord, right? Between you and the Lord, you may be forgiving him. meaning you're not taking vengeance on him. You're not trying to repay the hurt that he's given you, but you're allowing God to do that work in him. That doesn't mean trust between you and him. The relationship is going to be restored. It depends on the damage and whether or not you feel like you can move on emotionally. I'm just looking in the chat if there's any other questions tonight. So the Facebook group is private. You can use an anonymous name. You can come up with an alias so that people don't know who you are. I'm just looking through the chat to see if there are any other questions for me tonight. I hope this has been helpful to you. I know it's late in the evening for a lot of us, and so I don't want to keep you long, but I am looking to see if there's other questions. And if I can tell you any more about Conquer, please let me know. Put in the chat. What are your curiosities about joining Conquer? Or maybe if you're in Conquer, what do you like most about it? It's going to be open until April 21st. Natalie says, I love that it's not connected to anyone in my immediate circle. So Conquer is growing, and you may see names that you know, but it is a confidential place, and it's a safe place for you to go. And again, if you need to use a secure name, you're able to do that. So someone is commenting, I just watched the Facebook Lives. Facebook is open to all. Is there another Facebook page? So the Conquer is in a private place on Facebook. So a lot of things are happening within that support group. And twice a month, there are calls where you can ask questions of a coach. And those are done in Zoom. But there are also Facebook Lives that go on privately in the Conquer page. And Krista says, other women who get you. There are a lot of other women who have been or are in destructive relationships who do understand what it's like. So if you're like the person who asked the question about family members in church not understanding, this is a place where you will be understood. Amanda saying, Conquer changed my life. It gave me answers to things I had been dealing with for 20 years, answers to things that I had searched for many, many years. Yeah, go ahead and put in there specifically, what do you like most about Conquer? What have you learned in Conquer that's been helpful if you've already been in Conquer? And if you have questions about what you can learn, go ahead and put those in the chat as well. Conquer gave me a vocabulary. Yeah, part of what we learn in Conquer is clarity. And so there's a lot of verbiage that will come to you to help you begin recognizing what you may be experiencing in your relationship. And awareness is the beginning of change. And so this clarity, this eye opening can help you to put language to what you're experiencing, which will then help you to begin to change those patterns and begin to heal. Learning Jade was a game changer for me. So what that means, JADE, justify, argue, defend, explain. So when you're with a destructive person, justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining are not useful tools. In a healthy relationship, you can have a back and forth conversation where you can explain why you did something, you can justify your actions, and the other person is understanding of that. When you're in a destructive relationship, they somehow turn it on you and use it against you, and it's not useful to jade, as we say in Conquer. So I'm glad that was useful to you, a game changer. Here's another question. Even though I experience emotional abuse and anger from my husband, we have been separated for 6 months. I believe he is now seeing another woman. I feel jealousy, hurt, and more pain. How do I overcome and get past feelings of being replaced by a younger woman? I am just tormenting myself. Am I just tormenting myself by thinking about this? Well, you're going through something incredibly difficult, and the normal reaction to this would be grief. And so I think you're going to be feeling some tremendous grief. How do you overcome grief is basically moving through it, getting good support, taking care of yourself, managing your emotions well. And it's not something that can be fixed. It really has to be resolved over time, and hopefully resolved while you take care of yourself really well, moving through grief. And I'm so sorry this is happening in your life. It can be tormenting to think about it. And so I would ask you, is it productive for you to allow your mind to dwell on that? Part of grief is your mind will automatically start thinking about that, thinking about the what ifs, and to kind of replay it in your mind. And having loving support in your life that can help you with healthy distractions, and help you talk through some things, help you enjoy life again, to refocus you on things that are going to be helpful. Because you're right, it can become tormenting. Such a tragedy. I'm sorry that you're going through that, but I know in our community that is something that is dealt with quite regularly. Betrayal trauma, grief over loss of relationship, grieving, this kind of betrayal, addiction, all of those things. Yeah, so clarity and vocabulary was important to you as well. Praising God for my day one as a member. I'm so glad that you're enjoying that. And so Conquer is open now. You're welcome to sign up. We will be doing another live tomorrow. And the topic is, I'm stuck. How do I stop focusing on him and instead focus on my own growth? That will be tomorrow, Tuesday the 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern. Natalie says you will learn a lot about grief in Conquer too, and people are there for you. I'm so glad you're experiencing that. All right, everybody. I just looked. We have no more questions for tonight. And so I think I may let you go, but thank you for joining me here. You have the link. If you're interested in Conquer, pull that up and join us again live tomorrow on Leslie's public page. If you're dealing with, I'm stuck, how do I stop focusing on him and instead focus on my own growth? Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you, Kelly, for your support. Have a good night, everybody.